This actually is a story that came to my attention. Some parents in California reached out and got a hold of me, and I brought Alex in on this, asked him to write the story, because this was going on in California schools, and not enough people in the country were aware of it. Alex, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, this story is absolutely crazy. So we found out that they're including these videos from amaze.org, so-called, in the curriculum for sex education and other things in California. And so I actually spent some time looking through these videos, and it's enough to make you sick. It's just absolutely gross. Hopefully we can play one of those clips quickly.
Being curious about sex and looking at pictures or films of naked bodies or people engaging in sexual behaviors is perfectly normal. But you have to remember that porn contains some misleading messages, like bigger is better when it comes to breasts, penises, or the duration of sex. Pornography often shows women as only existing to give men pleasure. Lastly, porn might make you think that being sexual with another person has nothing to do with having an intimate, trustful, or respectful relationship.
You know what? I mean, this is beyond parody now. And a couple things I want to point about these videos. They are pornographic. This is pornography. You actually have and I realize the point that they're making there, right? They're trying to say on the one hand that watching pornography is perfectly natural. So you get that poor kid, looks like an African-American kid, cartoon at the very beginning is kind of, right? Like he's watching pornography, he's getting more into it. And then you get this warning, right? So pornography is perfectly fine, except for the way it objectifies people, except for the unrealistic body stereotypes it purveys, except for the fact that it has a lot of questionable moral circumstances. That last one was horrible, right? Pizza girl shows up at the door, doors flown open, the lady inside the house grabs the pizza girl, drags her inside, and apparently rapes her. Now, again, what they're trying to say to you is porn is wonderful, only just be aware that you're going to encounter rape scenarios, you're going to encounter all this other stuff. How could you possibly tell little children as young as 10 years old? This is geared for kids as young as 10-year-old. How do you tell them that porn is perfectly fine? You just have to ignore all the rape, all the violence, all the objectification. This is ridiculous.
It really is, Duke. And, people will not be surprised to know that the International Planned Parenthood Federation is one of the partners involved in this. Of course, they specialize in murder of babies. In fact, they claim to be pro-choice, but they're not even pro-choice. In the U.S. Congress, in a hearing, they were exposed working with the communist Chinese dictatorship, perpetrating forced abortions as part of that regime's one-child policy. And so, the questionable ethics, the questionable morals is, it just oozes from all this stuff. And I actually spent some time watching other videos they have posted on there. And again, these are for children ages 10 to 14, according to the website and according to the materials they produce. They do actually say it's perfectly normal to watch pornography. They have one on sexuality, where they claim that everybody's got a unique sexuality. Some people are pansexual, some people are asexual, some people are homosexual. All these different things. Gender spectrum, right? You can be any gender you want. This stuff again is being aimed at children who are 10 years old. These kids are like in 4th grade. Absolutely sick, and it's being forced on children all across California.
Dad, what does bisexual mean?
Why does Keisha have 2 dads?
How do 2 dads make a baby?
What is a vulva?
What's sex?
Little kids, big questions.
Before we go a little bit further in that, Alex, tell the audience about the circumstances in California. How did this come to you? What did you find out? How's it getting into California schools? Give a little background on the story.
Yeah, so California has been kind of at the cutting edge of sexualizing the children. They've passed a number of statutes in recent years that mandate a lot of this stuff. So they have one called the Healthy Youth Act, which is where this all comes in. And the schools then are charged with teaching children how to have healthy sexual relationships. And, we've done investigations on this program in the Newman Report at Freedom Project Media showing what this means. We found one curriculum that they were using, for example, that argues that, sex can be a little bit risky, but if you have anal sex, if you have sodomy, it's safe, right? They actually said this is a safer sexual practice. Turns out, if you go to the FDA, even using a condom, 30% of the time, if the partner has HIV, that'll be spread. In what universe you can consider a 30% chance of getting HIV a safe sexual practice? It boggles the mind. So what's happening here is these children are being set up to be infected with all sorts of venereal diseases, to have emotional scarring like you can't even imagine. And if you go to this amaze.org website, they tell you, we want to get past the old ignorance and fear-based understanding of sexuality, by which they mean, the Christian, the Judeo-Christian biblical ethic about sex, that it should be for marriage between a man and a woman. We want to get past all that and move to this idea that sex is actually healthy, that everyone should be having sex with anyone, whoever they feel like it. There are no rules, there are no moral constraints, there is no objective purpose to sex other than just having fun.
We're constantly making sex dark or something hidden. This is a project where we're really trying to celebrate reproductive health and trying to make it a little more fun than usually you would get.
And again, this is all totally infected in the curriculum. We talked about last week how even a bill to have parents have to opt in through kindergarten through 6th grade went down to defeat. A bill that would have mandated that the schools make this available to parents who are curious went down to defeat. And as we'll see in just a minute, a brave person in California who we can't name went to a meeting of the California Association of School Boards and asked about these things. The pizza cartoons having sex, and is this really appropriate for 10-year-olds? And maybe we can show the answer, just so you get a sense of where these so-called California educators are coming from.
So Amaze.org is a wonderful site with a wide range and variety of content. A lot of it's intended for parents to use with their youth, as well as potentially for the classroom. There are some of those videos that are selected that are age appropriate and compliant with the law that are included in the curriculum as well, because they're also involved in the curricula.
So we saw that first video designed for kids as young as 10 years old. I'm pretty much sure if I called somebody's kid into my living room and showed them animated pornography, big breasts, a guy who uses his penis as a lasso, and a potential rape of a pizza girl, if I showed that to little kids in my living room, I'm pretty sure this would be child pornography. How is it possible that they could be showing this level of stuff to your children as young as 10 years old without any consent from the parents, with no way that parents are allowed to know what's going on, where no ability for the parents to opt out at all because they won't know what's going on? How is it possible, right, that this isn't child pornography, and why doesn't this subjected to federal standards with regards to this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Duke. And in fact, we covered here at the Newman Report just a few weeks ago, in Florida, there's now an effort to have a criminal investigation opened into some of the pornography that's being given to children at schools. This is what child predators do to groom children. They expose them to pornographic material. They convince them that it's normal for people to be touching them, things like this. I mean, this is well-known psychology of pedophiles and child predators and sex traffickers. And in fact, if you actually go back and look into the history of where this nasty perversion came from, this idea that we need to start sexualizing all the children in school, it actually goes back to a guy called Alfred Kinsey, who, of course, was responsible for the rape and sexual torture of thousands of children, 5-month-old babies. I mean, they raped a 4-year-old boy until he screamed so loud he passed out. They said, oh, look, he's a sexual being, so we need to start teaching them sex ed when they're in kindergarten, when they're in 1st grade, when they're in 2nd grade. These people were child rapists. They were child predators.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind with this, too, that on top of everything else, one question you got to ask yourself, if 10-year-olds now can watch pornography in the classroom, can be exposed to all sorts of adult situations, can be actually empowered to explore. You're basically telling 10-year-olds it's perfectly fine to watch pornography. Just be aware of the fact that these harmful behaviors are all in all the porn you're going to watch. If we're capable of doing that to little kids, then tell me what happens the next time in California a 10-year-old who comes out of one of these schools has a sexual relationship with a 40-year-old man. How then can you call that pedophilia? How can you then call that criminal activity when you've just told the 10-year-old that you are perfectly capable to consent to whatever you want to consent to?